Thank you for your great presentation. So this is the end of the 3 presentations for the first session, and for the remaining 30 minutes, we will be having the panel discussion. For the discussion, we have Professor Jang Byung-tak from Seoul National University, who is majoring in the computer science, and he will be joining us online. Also, as our second panelist, we have Professor of Yonsei University, Professor Jo Sung-bae, who is also majoring in the computer science. So he will be joining us on the stage. And our presenter, Vice Executive Director Son Lezina, and also Dr. Enshuk Sonyak will be joining us as well to discuss about AI industry and the future society. So before we go into the discussion, we had the views from 3 companies, Intel, IBM, and the Singapore companies, about how they see the AI society. And regarding their presentations, if you have any questions to the presenters, please ask them now. So, Professor Chang, are you with us? So, can you hear me? Yes. So, any questions to the 3 presenters? Maybe you can ask a couple of questions to them. So, I really enjoyed the 3 presentations. You all had different views on how you have been doing the talents training in this area. And I could hear your experiences. And in Korea, we are also trying to nurture the next generation AI talents. We are putting our utmost efforts into that area in Korea as well. And from the industry, there are many new efforts because they really need the new AI talents, and I could get a lot of insights from the 3 presenters. So in that respect, one issue is that as we are trying to nurture new AI talents, but despite those efforts, we still do not have enough AI talents or experts. So in that respect, well, you mentioned about them during your presentation, but specifically for each field, we still do not have enough experts. So what would be any additional ideas to nurture more field-specific AI experts? That is my a question to all the presenters. So you can answer first, Dr. Anshul Sonak. So based on your experiences on AI education, any ideas?
So we should, your question is right. AI talent is a big issue. We should look at both sides. So the long-term talent development, which is where schools, vocational schools, higher education, we have to integrate AI education over there in their own existing curriculum and also help them create new content. So that will create a bigger pool. But to the immediate problem, right, because AI talent is in shortage in the industry right now, it really require heavy reskilling and upskilling agenda. So people who are already in job, especially in COVID, either people who are already displaced, so people who are losing job. So we need to have a public-private partnership to really now upskill people on AI related skills. And that is something Singapore does very well, and Intel is partnering with Singapore government on upskilling effort for people who are already losing jobs. And the people who are still in job but are very fragile, so for example, SME sector, small and medium enterprises, government sector, right? So who are at risk because of automation, right? Industries, those industries which are getting affected, SME being a good example, they need, some kind of an upskilling too. So reskilling and upskilling for the current jobs and creating a new pool for the future job, both are equally important and both require a bigger public-private partnerships. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Anything to add, Executive Director Son?
As introduced before, IBM is nurturing AI talent through public education, which will be done through long-term period of time. Our curriculum is for high school third graders and for people who were graduated from two-year college. And for now, companies are lack of AI talent. That's our reality, but we need to help the talent receive education they actually need, and they need to be equipped with both hard skills and soft skills. If they don't have soft skills in addition to the hard skills, then there will be problems with the ethics and morals in the industry. In order to take the right first step towards the AI, we need to emphasize both hard skills and soft skills. When I meet with businesses, explain about PTech curriculum, many companies say that if PTech curriculum lasts for such a long time, I don't think our company can afford that kind of program. But so if we use the public education at schools, we can more systematically start nurturing talent in cooperation with public education sector. And in PTech curriculum, we nurture AI talents and software talents. These are not the education to nurture some genius. Students participating in our PTech curriculum do not have the competency as high as to receive, for example, doctor's degree, but they have the competency at least intermediate level. When I say intermediate level, that refers to the level of competency where they can be input to the actual businesses at companies. And it is interesting that many students are passionate about what they learn at PTech program. They're so passionate that we are afraid we may not provide everything the students want, because students are so passionate, they're interested in many areas of AI, but there have been some lack of curriculum tailored to the needs of students. So we're trying to be more agile in satisfying the needs of students because we know they're passionate about learning. So these days we are trying to consider both the learning needs of students and the needs of companies. Thank you for your answer. Then Professor Cho Song-bae.
So you can ask some questions. So I could hear that IBM and Intel, you are like two pillars of the industry, and I could hear the views of those two companies in this field. It was so nice to hear that. But we say AI, but inside AI, there are many numerous technologies. So depending on how we define it, it can be so diverse. There can be machine learning and deep learning, of course. But I want to know what is the term of AI that you define at your company. And your company actually are not education experts. Actually, you are not the specializers in this education field. But what are you are what are the reasons for your company to work really hard in this educational field? You also mentioned about this briefly during the presentation, but can you elaborate more? So can we start with Ms. Son? So if you can, well, elaborate. Actually, there isn't anything more to elaborate. As I said, IBM has these programs.
IBM is providing social contribution programs. This is a technology-based program. Actually, IBM's employees are willing to make contribution to the society by making use of their talents and technologies. So besides PTAC, from around 10 years ago, we have been providing small PCs to little children so that they can learn the computer skills from an early age. And we are also helping them receive more STEM education. So this is one of our social contribution activities, and as a corporate citizen, we are trying to enrich education. In order to enrich education, we'd like to utilize the technologies and skills we have. And IBM is not an educational institution, and there are many areas of AI, many expertise of AI. And where are we focused on? We are not trying to foster AI genius, but our education is for students who graduate from high school or two-year college. So our educational program is more focused on providing basic education on AI skills, which could be useful for students when they actually graduate from school and go out to the society. And also, it is good opportunity for students to experience the technologies and competencies required by companies. I cannot say that the students of our educational programs are machine learning experts or deep learning experts. What we are doing is to help them nurture their basic competencies and the very basic skills. When we go to school, students ask me, what do I have to do to become an AI expert? If I tell them, you have to study English very hard, you have to study math very hard, then they are frustrated. I don't want to study math, but I want to be an AI expert. That's what students are saying. But they need to understand why they have to study math if they want to become AI. And they can learn how they can apply math into AI skills through our program. Thank you very much for your answer. Mr. Anshul Sonak, could you answer the same question? So what is the ideal education pursued by Intel, and why did Intel join the efforts to provide AI education for students?
Thank you. Very good question. We are also not an education company. We are a responsible business. And we recognize that in today's time, and especially with COVID, when there is already minus 5% economic growth worldwide, we need all forces of society to come together to bring economic prosperity, economic growth back. AI is one of the technology which has a potential to bring almost 14 trillion back in economic GDP in next 10 years. So 14 trillion GDP growth, right? It's just that we have to do it equitably so that not one country or not only one type of gender or one type of people take advantage or get benefited. So that is one very important reason for us to get into AI education. Second, we also recognize that expanding the market, right, and expanding the whole technology ecosystem is good for the society and good for us, right? And the best way to do this is to really work with the next generation of workforce, next generation of developers and creators who will create new solutions, who will have new ideas to solve the bigger problems which society is seeing, be it healthcare, climate change, education. So creating new solution, and that require a lot of data and data insight. And today, I mean, only 1% of data is actually getting used worldwide. A lot of data goes unused. So this is where, I mean, we believe as a responsible business, it is a right thing to do. It is a right citizenship and also right business decision to prepare everybody, as I said, democratize and demystify AI in a very responsible, human-centric way. And that's where, to the first question, how do we define AI, right, comes in. We define AI as a broader suitcase or an umbrella term. AI is intelligence, first and foremost. So it has to, artificial intelligence has to work with natural intelligence. And that's where my earlier point on cognitive and affective and manual task, that disruption and how AI has to pay attention to it, right? So it's definitely a form of intelligence. It is a technology, hardware, software, there are multiple things which goes into it. And it's also a study, right? So that's where, from a definition standpoint, a specific narrow AI, when I ask Waze or Never or Uber to take me from one place to another, right? It's very narrow task, whatever task we are giving. But today AI can do much broader task, general task. But still, AI cannot do all the tasks. So AI, for example, cannot change the nappy of a baby. So how do we decide what task AI can do good and what task AI cannot do good? Should I trust AI to change the nappy of the baby? Probably no, not required. So how do we have that judgment? And that is exactly where responsible human-centric AI become very important. That is exactly where we have to really educate everybody to understand this broader essence of human-centric AI, right? And that is where we come in. Thank you.
네. IBM은 사회공헌
So we could hear that IBM is doing it for the social responsibility, and Intel is doing it in terms for the humanity. So from universities, there are educations on AI, and at universities, I want to hear how you are carrying the AI education, and from university's perspective, what do you expect the primary and secondary institutes to teach to their students? So we can first hear from Professor Jang Byung-tak of Seoul National University.
네, 지금 서울대학교에서
So at Seoul National University,
잠깐
we have some programs for the AI education.
크게 두 가지로 나누고
There are two things we do. First is the AI technology development, the talent for AI technology development.
공자들이 되겠습니다.
So those are the science and engineering majors.
또 한편으로는
Second
어떻게 보면
part
전
is for non-majors, people who are not majoring in the science and engineering field. So their major might not be in this specific field, but they have their own majors, but they are applying AI to their own field that might be not in the science and engineering.
쉽지는 않은데 특히 한국 같은
In
경우에
Korea,
컴퓨터 사이언스
the majors of computer science, the number is quite limited, especially for the undergraduate school.
정부에서 아직
The government doesn't have the plan to expand that number. For graduate school students. I think I have sound problem here.
우리가 기초적인 기술을 개발하면서 AI를
듣고 있습니다.
민주적인 방식으로 모든
아, 소리가 잘 안 들리는데.
I think I have technical glitch here.
아,
I
계속
can't.
얘기해.
Can I continue? Yes.
듣고 있습니다.
예, 그래서 일단 컴퓨터 공학이나
So
코어에
those who majored in computer engineering or from the core IT segments, what we are trying to nurture their AI expertise, and we have created some special program for that,
양성하기
so that we
시작했고요.
can nurture the future talents. And from the undergraduates term, we have like a 3-year program starting from the entry. So it's like a selective course that starts from the freshman year.
그다음에 연합 전공이라는 거를
And there is like a consolidated major. That's a new name that we have created so that students can take
공학이 아닌 전공자들이 다른
students who are not majoring in the computer engineering can come and take those computer engineering courses
세컨 메이저
and study this field like a second major or maybe like a minor during their time in the university.
그리고 마지막으로
And
저희가
another thing we also have
학교 전체에
is that across the
AI 인스티튜트를 만들어서
campus university, we have an institute for AI education. So it is to study the AI application that can be applied to our everyday life. So through the program, we provide internships to students in alliance with industry. So we teach students about the actual practices of AI application. It also is used for R&D purposes. And that is also another way of nurturing our future talents. Thank you, Professor Zhang, for your answer.
대학교도 또 열심히
So now we'll hear from Yonsei University.
걸로 알고 있는데 한번 소개해 주시기 바랍니다.
Could you please share your case? Yes. Recently, AI has brought about great changes and sensations to the world, and many people have discussions and they disagree with each other. But first of all, AI is sometimes a solution that helps us solve problems, and as introduced by Intel and IBM, when we conduct education or research, we can learn or research something that can be clearly defined, but it seems that AI cannot be defined in just one word. So, in my university, we are trying to nurture AI-related talent. As Professor Na said, recently the Korean government announced that it has planned to establish an AI graduate school for producing the highly skilled people in the area of AI. We have such a program in our school to nurture AI talents who can do the problem solving. And at undergraduate level, we have students majoring in computer engineering, but not yet AI major. But there are people who study AI from science perspectives, but many people want to use the AI technologies to solve problems. So computer science or computer engineering would be the areas where people can learn how to use AI technologies to solve problems. That's what we're teaching at Yonsei University. And at my university, the Department of Computer Science is teaching students how to use AI technologies to solve problems. And many companies have higher demand for AI experts. And for students who would like to obtain the master's degree in AI, we have created the AI major at our graduate school. And so universities find it difficult to provide the proper education of AI to students because AI cannot be defined in just one word or so. For now, the most powerful AI would be machine learning, establishing a model by using the data set and data model. So we're focusing more on machine learning, but machine learning is not everything about AI. Every AI is not just about machine learning. So I guess teachers of high schools need to help students have the basic skill sets to study to study AI in more in-depth manner. And anyhow, AI is one of the areas where we can enjoy higher performance in problem solving. Of course, it will be good if students are good at math or science, but studying math or science is not just the essential requirement to become an AI expert. And it is not easy to create a subject or curriculum tailored to the AI skills. AI education also includes the education on problem solving ability, critical thinking, and that's a part of the soft skills. So I think students need to nurture their soft skills as well. And deep learning has good performance, that's true, and it's not really difficult to learn deep learning, although the principles of deep learning are not easy to understand. Even a high school student can learn how to understand the deep learning codes and how to use the deep learning tools or technologies if they spend just 1 or 2 months. So if we teach students the basic math or computer skills, then they can understand how to use the deep learning tools. So in the past, we taught students how to use Excel spreadsheets and Microsoft Word to nurture them as computer experts. That's the way we did in the past. But once we produce such people with capabilities in Excel spreadsheet or word processor, they were not really serving as essential, very useful talents in the businesses. When they go to the business world, they face the challenges and problems. We need to learn lessons from such cases. So when colleges create syllabus or curriculum, we need to consider these issues. And we need to work on this in cooperation with high school or middle school teachers as well. Thank you very much.
시간이
So we have reached the end of session 1 almost. And lastly, I have a question to Ms. Son. So there are many education programs created by companies like AI for Use and also MS. It has some programs, and Google also has the Collab. So there are many industry programs, and also there are university educations, and there are educations in the elementary and middle school and high schools. And any idea on how we can converge them together?
So you gave me the very difficult question to answer. As the professor and the other speakers said, I especially agree with Professor Cho. We first need to identify what kind of problems exist, and we need to think about how we can solve those problems by using the technologies we have. That's the education we want to provide to the students. each company has different approach to AI. Some of them may have something in common, but if you look at the big picture, we need to nurture the talents with competitiveness. Then we need to be able to help students quickly apply AI skills, and if something doesn't work, they need to make some corrections. Also, businesses and the government need to be able to try many things quickly, and if anything doesn't work, then we need to make corrections fast. Then we could achieve the desirable results. Sometimes you may feel frustrated, but I think we need to continue this effort. Thank you very much for your answer.
논의하고 싶은 사항들은 많지만
I'd like to discuss more, but due to time constraint, we will have to close this session. At elementary school and middle school and high school, they learn how to use TensorFlow, how to use AI skills, and also they learn how to utilize the toolkits provided by companies. At college and university, students also learn about more in-depth theories along with the practical R&D skills. So I hope that different levels of schools will cooperate with each other to foster the desirable talents for AI. And I'd like to thank you all speakers and panelists again for your participation, Professor Chang, Professor Zhou, and I'd like to especially thank Regina Son from IBM and Chairman Chia-Hock Lai and Dr. Anshul Sonak for your presentations. Universities, government, and educational institutions need to continue their efforts for fostering students to make Korea AI powerhouse. Thank you very much.